Thanks, Tracy. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's information session on flexible work arrangements. We're going to discuss the process. Today's panel includes Liz Meiser from Legal Services, and Lauren Franzen, Lindsay Christian, Natalie Gabbard, Marquita Barron from HR, and Kim Baker from University Wellness. And I'm Lori Southwood. I'm going to share some informational slides with you today, and then we'll answer as many questions as we have time for. So please take advantage of the, and submit your questions to the Q&A feature. And you can submit those at any time. And then after we go through the slide presentation, we'll start addressing as many questions, as I said, as possible. Next slide, please. So reimagined you. So as we look to the fall, we're looking back and forward. Back at what's defined us for the past 50 plus years, which is our commitment to student success, community engagement, and caring for each other. Forward, as we imagine what our future will be, incorporating what we've experienced and learned from the past 18 months or so. And there's where you get Back to the Future, Reimagined You. Our process, or our topic today, is a procedure. It's going to be a procedure before it's a policy. So that's important to note, meaning that it's a pilot at this point for the fall semester. So what we're discussing today is a procedure for flexible work arrangements that will be a pilot, meaning that we will gather feedback as we go through the fall semester to get feedback from managers and employees of what's working, what's not, what might need to change or be tweaked before we would make any determination to submit it through the policy process. So we're starting with the procedure for the fall. For the most part, this procedure that we're going to discuss today pertains to staff, not as much to faculty, but there are pieces of this that are going to be important to faculty. But when we're talking about the scheduling and the location, we're not talking about the scheduling of classes or whether a class is being taught online or remotely or in person. That is handled through academic affairs and their process. So we'll, as I said, go through details of the procedure. And then, as I said, we're going to need to gather feedback to determine whether the pilot that we're launching for the fall, whether that works, what parts of it work, what doesn't work, how can we improve it, what do we need it to look like in order to move forward beyond this semester. So we'll gather feedback. In putting together this work, we have gathered a lot of feedback as well over the summer from various groups across campus to bring you the draft that and the pilot that you're going to see today. Once we're through the pilot phase and we've gotten the feedback, we'll probably do that in a number of ways, but we anticipate that we'll at least launch at least 1 or 2 surveys throughout the fall semester. Then we'll craft the final policy that'll go through the normal policy process, which it is the same process that you've experienced for other policies, where it goes through the various approvals and reviews, and then it goes out for a feedback period. The transitions requires flexibility that you see there, the last icon that you see. What we're talking about there is that I just want to remind people that the transition back to campus is leaving many people feeling anxious, not just our students, but our staff and faculty as well. And what we're asking is that you please continue to be patient and compassionate with each other. It's important to remain flexible and understanding as we get back to the future for this Reimagined You. So consideration for each other is going to be important as we go through change here in this transition. And then I'm going to go back just for a second and talk about the procedure and how it pertains to faculty, because I missed going into this detail. So let me backtrack just for a minute and just say that for the main part of the procedure that will apply to faculty is their work location if they're teaching remotely. So as I said, it doesn't pertain to class schedules or whether the class is scheduled to be an online, a hybrid, or an in-person class. That's all handled through academic affairs. But we will need to have faculty and their chain of command participate in tracking and gathering the data and the information through the forms that we're going to share with you today in order to be able to determine where they're working, because that has some legal and compliance and tax implications for us. So that's the main engagement with faculty that will result from this procedure. Next slide, please. So we started with this philosophy, our flexible work philosophy, as we started putting this program together to allow flexibility for our employees while still ensuring student success, creating a vibrant campus and a sense of community where our students and our employees thrive. We know that our students really, they have a strong desire for a vibrant campus, but we also know that we attract and retain our employees because they enjoy working in this environment as well. And so for those of you that haven't returned to campus and have been remote, I know you may be experiencing some anxiety. I think most of us were, and the more that you're back on campus, the more comfortable you feel. And you remember that there were pieces that were missing, that some of that connection with your coworkers and really engaging with students is an important piece for our employees. Next slide, please. So just to put this into some context, the evolution of COVID-19, we've shared this a slide or a similar slide in past presentations as we looked at the impact of COVID-19 on our campus. This is basically, this comes from Siegel. This is a national trend that you're seeing here. And it's exactly the phases that we've been through. Phase one was to create a safe environment for our employees. That happened back on March 26th of last year when we ceased on-campus operations and transitioned as much of our workforce as possible to remote work, and then started communicating health guidelines and monitoring Frankfurt, our local health department, and the CDC, and getting that information out to our employees. Phase two, which really was hit a little bit later in the spring as we were going into a new fiscal year, planning for the new fiscal year that started July 1 of 2020. We needed to create short and long-term financial security, not knowing, having any idea of what COVID-19 was going to mean, how long this was going to last, what impact it was going to have. We needed to kind of shore up our resources. So we implemented hiring freeze. We eliminated unnecessary expenses. We had experienced salary reductions and furloughs, and we cut the employer TIA contributions. And that those efforts lasted for the entire fiscal year for the most part. So where NKU today is in somewhere between in the midst of phase 3 and phase 4. Phase 3 is the summer. We're looking at that as the summer. So that's the summer flexible schedule. A lot of organizations and other universities had specific mandates that employees be back on campus at a certain date over the summer. We have not done that. What we have done is allowed for some flexibility while still requiring that we have a presence on campus to meet the needs of those we serve, not just our students, but also other departments, our coworkers, and our external customers. And that flexibility hopefully has given employees, I guess, a longer runway to acclimate to the fall semester and the need to be on campus more often. And then phase 4 is the fall that we're weeks away from at this point. And that's when we'll be launching the actual pilot for the flexible work arrangements. And that's what we're here to discuss today. Next slide. So why consider a flexible work arrangement? Well, the research shows that there are significant benefits for a flexible or remote work situation. And this here is all national data and information that was captured last year. But 80% of employees consider telecommuting a valuable benefit. 36% of employees would choose to work from home over a pay raise. 54% of employees would change jobs for more flexible work options. And over 75% of employers indicate remote work has significantly improved employee retention. And I'm just calling out a few of these. So there are a lot of benefits to allowing for a flexible work arrangement process. Next slide. So the last slide was showing you national information and data. We have just completed a survey here, or Staff Congress has just completed a survey of our employees on campus. And we were fortunate enough to be able to access that information. I think the survey closed at the end of June. Staff Congress and the committee that worked on this are in the process of summarizing the report and the survey results to be shared with campus. But here's just some of the highlights from that survey. Let's see, I wanted a couple points that don't show on here that I want to mention. I think that they had over 400 responses to the survey, which is, if it's not the strongest response, the largest response to a Staff Congress survey, it's close, but I think it may be the largest response to a Staff Congress survey. So a lot of interest. Of those responding to the survey, 23.1% want to be full-time remote, and 10% want to return to campus full-time. But most of the respondents prefer a hybrid schedule. As you can see here, nearly 38% want a hybrid work arrangement, with set dates and times that they would be required to work remotely or work on campus. And nearly 30% want a hybrid work arrangement to come in as needed. 56% of the employees felt their productivity increased while they were working remotely, and 36% didn't like that they had less interaction with coworkers. So they saw that as one of the downsides of working remotely. Next slide. So just a reminder, it's not a one-size-fits-all program. There are many components to a flexible work arrangement option, and we've listed out what the main ones are here, but there may be others. Most, if not all of these around the circle, are things that may be happening now on campus, that may have been worked out with certain departments or between a manager and an employee and a supervisor. But we just haven't had a procedure in place to really support this type of activity. So what you see here is flex place and flex time, staggering shifts. Oftentimes stagger a shift based on family needs, or if you're co-parenting, so that it aligns with the other parent in your family. A compressed work week is where you work your full schedule, but you do it in a shorter period of time. So that one example of that would be working a little bit extra every day for 9 of the 10 days in a pay period. So that one day a pay period or once every 2 weeks, it wouldn't be a work from home, you would have a day off. And so that activity has been happening for several years. We've rolled out a policy that or procedure that allowed that to happen. And many departments engage that process over the summer. Reduced or a part-time schedule, whether that's permanent reduced or part-time schedule, or whether that's a temporary reduction or part-time schedule, say for a semester or maybe for the summer semester or the summer period. Job sharing, where 2 people would be share a responsibility for one role or one position. Next slide. So we think that the 2 areas of the flexible work arrangement that are important to call out and to explain the difference is that when we say flexible work arrangement, or when we're talking about a flexible work arrangement, it's not just a remote work or a work from home procedure or policy. There's a part of it that would be a work from home or a remote work, and that's the flex place side of it. So the yellow box there, where an employee's normal off-campus work location. The flex place arrangement allows employees to work from home or another remote work location for a set specific number of hours or a predetermined duration. So again, as I said, it's important for us to know where that work is taking place when it's not taking place on campus. So that'll be part of the information that we gather from everyone. And then the flex time is what I was just describing with a compressed work week. That would be an example of flex time. A staggered start or end time, staggered schedules would be an example of flex time, where it allows for flexible scheduling arrangements that permit variations in start and finish times, but doesn't alter the total number of hours that, or your FTE, or the numbers of hours that you're scheduled to work in a work week. So the total hours stay the same, but how you work those hours may change. And the box at the bottom is just, to mention this, and this is, we'll share again, and it's on our documents, but all flexible work arrangements must be approved by the employee supervisor, the department head or dean, and human resources. In some units, in some divisions, this also may be driven, or approval may be required at the vice president level. So you'll need to check with your chain of command to see what information they want access to and what is the information do they want to see for them to engage in the approval process. Next slide. So it's important to understand that not all requests for flexible work arrangements can be approved due to the nature of the job. Decisions should be based on whether or not an employee's responsibilities can be performed from home or from a remote location, or whether or not the employee's job can be successfully performed with a different schedule. So it's not something that can be administered or rolled out for it to be the same for all employees across campus. We don't all do the same work. We don't all engage in the same way. And so therefore, we need to look at each situation and the uniqueness of that situation before making a determination of whether a flexible work arrangement can be engaged in. Here, we've listed out factors to consider for employees and for managers to consider as they're determining whether or not they can request or approve a flexible work arrangement. First and foremost are our students, and what are our students' needs? What are their wants and what are their needs? And are we surpassing their wants and are we meeting their needs? And then the needs of the department or the unit. It's not each individual position that needs to be looked at, but it also is how that position interfaces and supports the rest of the department or the unit. The needs of the employee. what is it that works best for the employee as far as being able to be the most efficient and most productive that they can be. The employee's work duties and the ability to measure or assess the work being performed. If it's being performed remotely, are there different measures that we need to put in place to be able to assess the work? The availability of equipment or software may be an issue. I think most people have access to most of the software that they need to do their job remotely. We've proven that over the past 18 months, but not all is available. And so that may be a factor in whether you can work remotely or your employee can work remotely or how often they can work remotely. And the measurable objectives and results mutually agreed on by the employee and the supervisor, the way that we would agree on goals and objectives in a performance evaluation should be a similar relationship and engagement communication with the employee and the supervisor. Next slide, please. So the process would go is this: employees requesting to have a flexible work arrangement must discuss the matter with their supervisor and propose a specific arrangement using the flexible work arrangement form. And I'll share that with you in a few minutes. So the employee can download the form, review it, and consider what they're going to request, and then meet with their supervisor and have a conversation. So that's what starts the process. But there may be before that even happens, the need for a supervisor, a department head, a dean, or even the vice president to determine the parameters that we need to engage in as we look for flexible work. Are there limitations to flexible work that in order for us as a department or a division to meet the needs of those we serve to get our work accomplished, are there limitations that need to be defined? And then employees could work within those limitations to request their flexible work arrangements. So it's important too, I mentioned this before, but it's important to say this again, that the flexible work arrangements are approved on a case-by-case basis. So it may be that some in a certain work unit or department can be approved for remote work or flexible work, and other positions won't lend themselves to that directly. And so you need to take into account all of those factors in determining it. And so that's really where it gets down to needing to be decided on a case-by-case basis. There's, obviously there's some areas or departments where remote work isn't feasible at all. The work has to be done on campus, or workloads may restrict the department's ability to be flexible at certain times. So the bottom line there is the departments must have sufficient staffing every day of the work week to meet their responsibilities, and they will not be able to bend that requirement in order to allow for flexible work arrangements. So that requirement must be met first, and then flexible work arrangements can be approved. The supervisor, department head, dean, human resources, or the employees may discontinue the arrangement by written notification. And if the arrangement is ended, the supervisor will work with the employee to determine the final work date for the flexible work arrangement. So trying to give some notice there for that change that would take place in that work arrangement agreement. Next slide. So we have some resources. We've developed resources for you. Some of you that are on the call may have been on the call last week and have heard this information. Others may have talked to someone on the call last week and know that we have some of these resources are already out and available to you. The flexible work arrangements forms is what I was referring to, that will allow you to put in a schedule, work that out with your supervisor, both sign off on it, and it goes through the approval process. The flexible suitability guide is is drafted for supervisors and will help the supervisor determine the suitability of the work and of the employee in a remote or flexible scheduling arrangement. And there's a flexibility suitable worksheet that can be a nice tool to kind of go through. It's like a checklist to go through to help an employee. These were designed specifically for departments or supervisors, but employees might find them valuable as well, and they're out there and readily accessible. The website, the flexible work arrangement website, is housed on the HR site, and all of the resources are out there at this point in time. If we make changes to that, we would flag it and let you know that a change has been made. We don't anticipate changes to the form at this point, but possibly as we go into the fall semester and we're piloting it, there may be some recommendations for change. We welcome your feedback on the forms and the resource materials, and for any changes or edits or updates that you think are necessary. The last here is the FAQs, which I think you're going to find very valuable. There's FAQs that are out there now. We're adding FAQs based on the questions that we received with last week's session. We will also incorporate some of the feedback that you give us today as we update FAQs. So the one thing that will change out there throughout our time, throughout the rest of the summer, and probably into the fall, will be the FAQs, where we're adding more information out there for as we hear from you and know what your questions are. Next slide. So I said I'd share it. I know it's hard to see, but I just wanted you to see that it's fairly comprehensive, but I don't think it's overly or it's undaunting in any way. I think that when you get down to it and sit down, you'll see that you can fill this out fairly easily. If not, feel free to contact HR and we will help you walk through it. But this is the form that's out there. There's a scheduling section, and then there's a check mark section of things that you agreed to in this arrangement. And then the last are the supervisor signatures. Lastly, it'll come to human resources, and we will be compiling the activity here so that we can also report out to senior leadership and to the campus what kinds of activity we have, who's engaging in it, and how are they engaging in this process. Next slide. The FlexPlace suitability guide, as I said, was for supervisors, but anybody can access it. Again, I know it's hard to see, but I thought just to give you an idea of what's involved in this guide, I'm going to read you the table of contents. Purpose, FlexPlace work for NKU employees, benefits of FlexPlace work, flexible work arrangement examples. Step 1, determining which positions are conducive to flexible arrangements. Step 2, determining the suitability of specific employees who are interested in FlexPlace arrangements. Step 3, ensuring FlexPlace work success, employee and manager training and learning. Step 4, tips for creating FlexPlace work arrangements. And then a list of additional resources is also included in that guide. Next slide, Tracy. So I said that we had this, what is a tool for you to use, FlexPlace suitability worksheet. And it's listed to be for managers and supervisors, but I said it might be a nice tool too for an employee to engage in and see, what kinds of things are we encouraging managers to consider in granting any changes in scheduling or allowing for remote locations. So an example there. Next slide. And then I think that the page that's being frequented the most is our frequently asked questions page. what we hear here are samplings of the questions that are out there that we currently have the question and the answer. I don't have the answers here on this slide, but thought it would be helpful for you to see a snippet of what's out there. So what types of frequently work arrangements, flexible work arrangements are allowed. What happens if an employee with a flexible work arrangement transfers to another department? Are all employees eligible for flexible work arrangements? What's the most common reason for a flexible work arrangement? May I take care of my children or other family members while I'm working from home? Next slide. And just some more, what is the expectation of the designated offsite setting? While utilizing a flexible work arrangement, what is the employee's responsibilities? Can I work from another state or outside the United States while utilizing a flex place arrangement? And what are the tech expectations for the other work locations? Are just examples of what's out there. Next. So before I open it up, I see that we've got a couple questions, but I'm encouraging you to submit any questions that you have in the Q&A function, and we will be getting to those in a minute. But I wanted to just mention something before we get into the questions. Very specific questions are better addressed one-on-one offline. So if you have a very specific question about your personal situation, I know that we've allowed for anonymous submission of questions here, but it would still be better if we were able to engage and give you more specific information about your situation. As we said before, everything here, each one of these is going to be, decided on a case-by-case basis. And so we want to make sure that we're considering all aspects of your particular situation. So I'll just mention that. The other thing that I want to say that came out in the last session is there was some pushback on, I don't know that I've used it today in this presentation, but we did last time. And I do occasionally refer to this period of time, or we refer to being post-COVID, which is not really true. We are not post-COVID. The pandemic is not over. Every day, almost, if not more frequently throughout the day, there's updates coming from the CDC or from the governor's office or from our local health department on best practices, trends, or just what's happening with positive cases in our area and the variants. And so all of that we continue to track. There's still a well-formed COVID preparedness team. There's still a healthy workplace officers work group. We still in HR have a COVID work group, and as do other areas across campus that are still active. Maybe we're not as active as we were this time last year when it was all new to us, pre-vaccines, but we're still very engaged and monitoring what's happening in the world around us so that we can give the best information to all you. And I do think that the fall is still going to be a transition period for us. And not only is it a transition period or a period of change for us because we're piloting this program, but it's going to be a period of change and transition for us because of outside forces as well. And what's happening with what regulations are being put in place on us as an institution or on you as a citizen. And so we will continue to monitor that and get that information out to you as best as we can. With that, I'd like to, before we open it up to the Q&A, just ask the rest of the panel members if they've been through this, they've have pulled all this information together for you, and probably have a list of things that I should have said that I didn't, or that they'd like to add. And so please feel free panel members to jump in if there's anything that you want to add at this point, and then we'll turn to the questions.
Well, I do have a couple of things. The first thing is the last time that we talked about returning back on campus, there was a training that needed to take place that was required for everyone to take. At this point, we're doing something very similar but different, where there is going to be a 1 or 2 page quick reference guide that will be accessible through the webpage. You will not be having to take it in the form of a training. So just want to reiterate that this is not going to be like it was last time where you were required to take a training. This is just something that is going to be accessible to you for you to actually use as a quick reference. The second thing that I will say, definitely for you managers, make sure that you take a look at that suitability, I got braces, y'all, I'm sorry, suitability guide. That will definitely help you in terms of helping you to manage this process that we're talking about. The other thing that you'll also will have access to here shortly is a manager guide, kind of like what we had a playbook for you last time. This will be a playbook 2.0 to help you with your employees, as well as self-care for yourself. There's things in there that you'll be able to rely on for that, as well as point to some additional resources. So please make sure that you take full advantage of that. There were things that came out in our last conversation that we had, and we just want to make sure that we give you all the tools and resources necessary to be successful.
Thanks, Marquita. Anybody else? Okay, so if we want to start with the questions, I think that it looks like Natalie and Lauren are in the space sharing that they're going to navigate the Q&A for us. And I saw, Natalie, that one of the first questions is one that you'd like to answer.
Oh, I answered that you were kind of answering it live, that we are keeping a watch on CDC, Frankfurt, things like that, monitoring the situation carefully. Just to add, the COVID preparedness team is still meeting. The Healthy Workplace Officer Group is still meeting. So we're really looking at all of the information that's coming out. Another question that came up a lot was the question about meetings. So if I'm scheduled to work remote that day and there's an in-person meeting, what does that mean for me? Lori, you want to?
I'll take a stab. I'll take a stab at that, and others can chime in. The answer there is a common HR answer. It depends. It depends on the technology that's available. We do have, and I know that IT has done a lot of work with, last year, the main focus, and I know it is this year too. Actually, Tracy was just speaking to it before we came online today, but that a lot of work is going into smart classrooms and getting classrooms set up, but they've also spent some of their time on meeting rooms and getting meeting rooms more connected and more capable of engaging in hybrid meetings or engaging remote workers. Not all meeting rooms or office space or rooms with meeting tables or where people might gather have that capacity. Sometimes the technology to engage employees on campus with employees that are working remotely might be the phone. It might be, a call in or a phone line or somebody on speakerphone. But other times it could be Zoom or Teams or having somebody on a big screen projected in the space, in the meeting space. So it really depends on where the meeting's taking place and what kind of technology is available. But we do know that I would say the vast majority of us have become somewhat proficient with Zoom and with Teams. And I would see that activity would still continue. But I'm gonna say one thing here that's not directly about this question, but but it's the idea of the teams, the experience that we have with Zoom and with Teams. It's really, really important that we understand that we know that the majority of people that could work remotely were working remotely over the past year, or a good portion of the past year. And therefore, meetings we were very efficient, very productive with meetings through Teams and through Zoom and getting our work done. But we were all remote, and the students for the most part were remote, and those that were meeting were remote. And so we were all in the same, we all had a square on the box. The difference going into the fall, and it's a big difference. It's a big difference as far as workflow, as far as managing a team or supporting a team, is that some will be on campus and some will be remote. And how we deal with that in an equitable way is a challenge. And it's a challenge for those working on campus and those working remote. And so that's in part why we can't, because we were able to be productive in the past, does not mean that we will be productive in this new environment if people are 100% remote. And so we need to take that into consideration. And the other, of course, the biggest factor is that students will be on campus for the most part. And so it's not the same, but I think the technology and the experience and learning that we achieved over that period of time will serve us well and support us in being much more able to be efficient and productive with people working in other locations.
Okay, so I think maybe a couple of us can help answer the following questions. A lot of questions from employees about what to do if their supervisor or department head either disagree with each other on whether that employee can work a flex place or flex time schedule, or if they completely both disagree with the employee. So I guess I can start. The first thing is contact HR, where we want to be involved in all of the process for you and to help you. So we're all here to kind of coach you through a conversation that you might have to have that might be difficult. The guidebook that Marquita talked about, I think will help managers as well with some talking points that they can use for their department head or VP. But anyone else wants to kind of join in on that answer?
Well, and I would say too, if you're a supervisor and you think you're going to have to say no to a request, feel free to reach out to us first and we can walk through it with you. And there may be an alternative that you would be able to offer someone that maybe you haven't thought about, or maybe we can help you just think about something differently. But definitely reach out and we'd be happy to, whether it's the employee reaching out or the supervisor reaching out, just having somebody else to talk through it with is helpful.
One thing that I don't know if this is in any of the questions that we're getting, but one thing that maybe I neglected to say is that this process is for flex place or flex time is not, it doesn't replace a process that may be asking for an accommodation because of a personal situation or a health issue. That's still a separate process. We've always had that. That process will continue. So if there's a health reason or a health issue, we would still, and I'll let Natalie speak to this because she's the person that you would be engaging with, but we will still be continuing that process. And in some cases, it may parallel this process, but it's not the same. And the approval is not the same. Anything that you want to add to that, Natalie?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's a medical issue that you may have, we definitely have accommodations that we can do. So please just reach out to me, Rachel Green as well, and we can work with you through that process. Another question that I thought was kind of a fun one. Are we considering remote Fridays again next summer? And if so, maybe can we announce it sooner rather than later so that we can plan activities on campus?
Okay, so there's 8 of us on the screen. I'm going to include Tracy in that, and all of you out there that can remind us mid-year maybe um, to have that conversation and determine earlier what maybe our summer would look like. Uh, and so all I can say is there's been no discussion of it, so that means that at least that it hasn't been determined that we won't do it. But I think that again, we just know that it feels like everything's new, and so we may need to take inventory of what our needs are going to be for this summer and determine if that would work or if there's other arrangements that might work better. But I do get your point, is the earlier we could make those determinations, the better. So thank you for the question and the nudge.
Liz, I think this might be a question for you. Can you speak to the process and where we are in the process of if we are going to mandate vaccines for the fall?
That has been discussed. I know that's obviously been brought up because that's a concern, but at this time we are not mandating vaccines. And I think, Lori, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this, but my understanding is that the university doesn't mandate any vaccines. So this would be a deviation from our policy. So yes, at this point in time, we are not mandating vaccines.
That's right. And but we have discussed it. We are monitoring what other schools are doing. That may our discussions may increase based on what we're hearing with the variant or what's coming out of the CDC. Of course, we're going to follow the recommendations of the governor's office and of our local health department, where that for any direction there. But that's right. We're not mandating. We are strongly encouraging vaccines. We will be communicating. I think a communication will go out probably that first week in August, just with information on where you can get vaccinated, where you can get tested, because there's still testing that, obviously kind of moved from testing in the forefront or in the news to the vaccinations, but still we're encouraging people to get tested if they have symptoms that they think might be COVID related. And we offer testing on campus. So we'll be getting information out and we'll update that information, but strongly encouraging vaccinations for all the ages that are eligible.
So there's been a couple questions about parking and part-time and that kind of thing. There are not going to be any changes to parking passes if you're going to be only on campus 3 days a week or something like that for the fall. I mean, there always is the option if you want to not buy a parking pass and just park in the garage or something and pay. But when we sat and you do the math for that, it's really more expensive to just pay even 1 day a week to park in the garage. It makes your parking pass look really cheap. So there's really not enough time, at least at this point, to get anything in place for the fall for a part-time parking permit, but that's discussion's always on the table.
This is a really great question that came in. Can an employee request a mix of flex time and flex place, or only one or the other? And I think as Lori pointed out earlier in the presentation that, one shoe doesn't fit all, right? So yes, absolutely. I think that we're going to see, kind of different solutions for employees across campus. Departments are very different as well. So one department might look completely different to another department that, on the surface might seem like they do kind of the same work, but really their needs are much different. So yes, absolutely. Be creative and have creative conversations between the employees and the supervisors and department heads.
Well, for the new employees that, like myself, that started during the time of COVID, one of the things I want to highly encourage you to do is make some time to actually be on campus to work, to kind of get acclimated to working in an environment. And it's a really great way to get a sense of connectivity to the place that you work at. I have had a ball for the past couple of weeks at least in doing so. I'm going to give kudos to Kim for taking me out or giving me a tour of where everything is. So if you got peers on your team that can help you to do that, I encourage you to do that. And peers, volunteer to help your newbies. They really need your help to kind of get, what that experience is to actually be working on campus. So let's do our newbies well. So just want to put that out there.
So there's a question about the form, talking about the work situation for 2 weeks, and do we need to fill out a new form every 2 weeks? No, you absolutely do not. The idea was just kind of that's the, you're filling out the form one time, and that's putting your schedule out there, but it does not have to be completed every 2 weeks.
Yeah, there is a start and end date on that form as well. So you can put your start date in and then an end date.
Okay, so just a couple of questions that came up about how feedback is going to be taken for this pilot program. And again, I think Lori had mentioned we'll at least be doing a survey at the end of the fall semester, but we believe there'll be other opportunities for feedback as well.
And of course, I mean, we're inviting you to give your feedback throughout the period. Give feedback on the forms, give feedback on the documents, give feedback on your situation, share with us what's happening with you. And it's helpful if you can do that directly, so that, if we have questions to get more information, we can contact you and make sure that we're understanding your situation and what your feedback is. But we're going to encourage feedback, and then we'll do a more formal survey as well.
Just another, oh, sorry, am I?
No, yeah, you're
okay. Just another question about that form that came in. How far can that end date be? That's really a discussion between you and your supervisor. But again, as we've said, this is a pilot program for the fall. So you might want to think about, the fact that this is a trial for you as well. So maybe end date it this fall semester, and then you can look at it again. Maybe things need to change for you as well. So I would encourage everybody to maybe do a shorter trial period before everybody really commits for a longer period. And then another question that I'm not sure, Lori, if you know the answer to this or not, have we surveyed students to see how they're feeling about returning to campus? Do you know?
I don't. I mean, I know that we engage with students all the time in various ways, focus groups, surveys, where they're, it's just not our work here that we do, but others on campus, it's their life. That's what they do, is engage in students that are maybe haven't registered yet, or, really trying to understand the student experience. And so I'm sure that there has been communication back and forth, gathering that information from the students, but I'm not directly aware of the details of that. So the one thing that I'll mention, some of the questions I know kind of danced around this a little bit, or even some of the FAQs that we've already addressed, but what are the responsibilities of someone who is getting approval or given permission to work. Some are part of their time, some are all of their time remotely. And there are some requirements and some parameters there as well. You know, this past year, I mean, we went out pretty suddenly with not a lot of notice when we decided to shut down on campus operations as much as we could and send our work remotely. The same time that schools were doing the same thing. And so, you know, people were home with their children and trying to homeschool stay abreast of what was going on in their work life and being responsible employees. And we all lived through that. So I don't need to go into any more detail than just a flashback to last year. But there are, you know, certain things that if we're doing this formally and it's being approved, you're requesting it's being approved, that, you know, there's some best practice. We share a lot of that information in the materials of, you know, having a designated workspace, making sure that your materials that you're engaged with are kept private and confidential, that they're not accessible by others that might be coming into your house or your space. So, you know, making sure it's a safe environment, that, you know, the same way we don't want there to be tripping hazards in your office or your cubicle on campus. We don't want you to have that in your workspace at home either. There's going to be, you know, an obligation to be able to have certain connectivity or technology, that if you, you know, live in an area that doesn't get good internet and your work requires you to engage either with campus directly through the internet or in your work with the internet, then that may not be a good work remote work arrangement or a flexible work arrangement for you. So we'd want, you know, to make sure you have technology of hotspots or that you have what the resources that you need to do your job well. And, you know, that wasn't really an option for us up front. This past year, we kind of got into the situation. And then when people were experiencing issues, I mean, IT really came through for us with extra monitors and extra technology and cameras and everything that we needed. But if you're requesting it, you're going to want to make sure that you have the ability to, you know, have a cohesive workspace and a work environment with good communication.
So there's been a couple questions about kind of around the idea of if I'm scheduled to work from home on a certain day and then I end up having to come in for a meeting or something like that, or, you know, when things change. And that's, I think, one of the things that has to be part of the conversation with your supervisor when you set up your flexible work arrangement. So it's, are all the meetings able to have a Zoom component? Are you going to have some meetings that are going to have to be in person? And, you know, honestly, for everybody, it's going to be different. For every situation, it's going to be different. But those are some of the things that you're going to want to talk to your supervisor about. And what are you going to do when those kind of situations arise? But that's definitely needs to be part of that conversation when you're setting things up.
The other thing about a flexible schedule or flexible work arrangements, or if we're talking about part of a day you're working from home and then part of a day you're working on campus, for the most part, most of the work arrangements we expect will be whole days spent either on campus or home or remote or somewhere else. But when it's a partial day, that gets a little bit trickier. So, you know, it's not, your travel time to and from work is not paid time now, and it wouldn't be paid time if you've got an alternative work arrangement either. So we need to take that into consideration as you schedule your time and track your time.
There's another question about how long is going to be the turnaround time for the forms. So I think most of the time it's going to be a couple days on our part, but every situation could be a little bit different depending on, there may be extenuating circumstances, but it shouldn't be too long.
Are we seeing other questions coming in, or? We are scheduled to go until 3:30, and we will stay on if we're getting questions. So if you have a question that you want to submit, please do. Otherwise, we will end sooner. So I want to take a moment, though, to speak to supervisors too. So the supervisors are in this unique situation where they need to determine what maybe what the parameters are for their work group or their department or their unit, but you also probably need to also check with your supervisor and see if they want to be involved in that decision. As I said, I know that some divisions, the vice president is sending out kind of some broad restrictions or broad allowances, and then it's then down at the work unit that they're making decisions how they're going to engage in that and how they're going to manage to that need. And so again, what we talked about in one of the earlier slides is you really need to assess what the needs of the department are. Are you meeting the needs of those you serve? Are you meeting them in the most efficient way you possibly can? In some cases, what we're finding, and as we, launch some of this flexibility in the summer, what we're finding is that departments are readjusting and realizing maybe they have a request that employees want to work a compressed work week. And so they're working longer hours. Well, what that's allowing for is more open hours to meet customer needs or student needs. So I can see that carrying into the fall. We have evening classes that start well after 4:30, which is our normal shutdown time for our offices. I know that there are some that directly serve those students that have a couple of days a week that they work extended hours, but maybe there are more offices or services that could extend their hours, might create more of a vibrant campus for some of the non-traditional students and allow them to access the resources directly. But it also allows for there to be a win-win with employees that might want to stagger their schedules, start a little bit later in the day, but work a little bit later. That might actually be a beneficial schedule for somebody's personal situation. And it would actually has the potential to improve the services that department or that work area is offering. So we're seeing that there are some creative solutions happening across campus, and encourage you to think of those things and engage your work units in those kinds of ideas and thoughts, but also check with your chain of command. The other thing that I want to say to supervisors is that we're here for you. So for directors, department heads, deans, VPs, if you have a group of supervisors that are in your chain of command and you have regular meetings with them, we'd be happy to come to one of your meetings, either if it's a standing meeting or you want to schedule a meeting and work through what parameters or what you might want to consider as far as what you're going to allow or how best to build flexibility, some component of flexibility for your employees. We believe that happy employees will also support student success. And we value our employees. And so we want to, that's why we're doing this. That's why we want to go through this pilot process and learn what we can from it and see what works. If we're able to really create a vibrant campus, and we are engaging with students more than we've ever done before, and we're still allowing for the flexibility, well then that could be the best outcome ever. So so any ideas or suggestions or feedback that you have that could improve the process or help us better serve our students and each other, we welcome that. Any other questions or any other comments from the panelists?
I have another question that just asking if we have a sense of what our peer institutions are doing to address flex. Our group has been researching flexible work, remote work, all kinds of different types of work for months now. And we really feel like the procedures that we presented are very much in line with not only our peer institutions, but the national kind of trend for higher education. So yes, we feel like we've pretty much kind of come in where the majority of them are. UK is doing something very similar right now. Most of the questions, sorry, just so you know, are safety questions. So I'm not sure if you want to address all of them or just kind of reiterate what we're doing now on campus.
So yeah, I mean, this session here today isn't really one where we're going to be able to address all of the safety concerns or what does it mean, what risks are associated with your work environment or on campus. Though, as I said, and Natalie said, we are COVID preparedness team is fully engaged. Healthy workplace officers are in meeting regularly and in direct communication with Frankfurt, the CDC, and our health department. We will keep you informed as we learn more or as there might be changes in our situation. The other thing that we haven't said here that I think went out in one of the COVID updates this summer is, if you're vaccinated, you're not required to wear a mask in Kentucky, and we're not requiring it on campus. Though we encourage people that if they feel more comfortable wearing a mask, to wear a mask. And we encourage people to not assume that if someone's wearing a mask, it means they're not vaccinated. It's that, it may be that they're engaging with at-risk populations or that they have a concern themselves. Or, just after wearing a mask all that time, every time I approach a door to any building, I kind of pause and feel like, I forgot something important and I'm vaccinated and I don't need to wear one. But when I went to Kroger this past week, I put one on. And sometimes it's, children are still wearing them. They're not in the vaccinated category yet. They're not getting vaccinated. It's not approved for them yet. So they're still encouraged to wear them. So sometimes I put it on if I see that there's a child wearing one. I want to kind of give them encouragement or, support them. And so I think that we're encouraging safe practices. When you schedule a meeting right now, when we're scheduling meetings on campus, we're being very mindful of, allowing for it not to be a crowded room, make it maybe a little bit bigger room than what would hold your capacity. And we are not distancing 6 feet apart, but we are allowing people to distance and not be right up next to each other. And we're being respectful of those that it might be their first day or their first week back on campus is that meeting, and they might kind of want to sit off a little bit farther away from everyone else. And we need to respect that and support that, and just really encourage healthy practices in everything you do. It's not just when you're coming on campus, but it's also when you're, engaging in your day-to-day lives, whether that's going to the grocery store or to, the doctor's office or whatever you might do. So, So we'll continue to monitor that and share that information. I think that there'll be a COVID message that'll come out before long. I think possibly early August, we'll be sending out a lot more detail about just what we know at that point in time. And again, reinforcing where you can get vaccinated and where you can get tested.
So there's a bunch of different questions that have come through from people about if my supervisor has said that I can't have a flex arrangement, or they don't think their supervisor is going to let them have a flex arrangement, what should they do? So I think really the best thing is to come talk to us. This is it's meant to be an interactive process. So we're not going to tell your supervisor. People seem to be worried if they're going to be told, their supervisor is going to be told that they came to HR. So that's really not how it's going to work. But we want you to come talk to us. We can give you some talking points to go back to your supervisor with, but this isn't something that's meant to be a one-sided thing. So this is supposed to be an interactive process. It's a conversation back and forth to figure out what's really going to work the best. So, but please feel free to reach out to HR to help with talking points for that conversation.
Encourage the supervisors to reach out as well. And many of those areas that aren't conducive to remote work might be feasible to allow the flex time, which could actually, maybe create a day off every 2 weeks or something for the employee that may be beneficial to their work-life balance as well, and allow them a little bit of flexibility. So there are ways that, it may be possible. Even somebody whose work is face-to-face, dealing with directly with their clients, whether that be students or others, there's probably some reports or some downtime or some, thought time involved. And so maybe there's a way to carve that out, and periodically, throughout the pay period, maybe there's a way to give a little bit of quiet time to that person to do that work remotely. So there may be some flexibility, but employees also need to realize that some of the roles just aren't conducive to remote work. And if that's really important to you, then you'd also want to engage with Lauren in HR to talk about, what other opportunities maybe on campus might be coming up in the foreseeable future, and how could you position yourself to be a potential candidate there. And so there's opportunities that if one role doesn't quite meet your needs at this point, let's see through this pilot if we can adjust it to better meet your needs. And if not, let's see how else we might be able to facilitate your success on campus. So I'll say this, and if other questions pop up, if you've asked a question, we haven't answered it, it may be that I'm not looking at the questions right at this point, but others here on the panel are. If yours hasn't been addressed, one, if you've told us, if you're not anonymous, we'll reach out to you with that answer. We can reach out directly as we look into it more with a little bit more thought. Some of the questions coming in are similar to other questions, so we may not have answered yours directly. We'll also go through these and try to post frequently asked questions that address some of these concerns that you've raised, but feel free to reach out to us directly if your question has not been answered.
I think we're good.
Okay. Any closing thoughts from the panelists? Kim, give us a plug on taking care of ourselves and oh, we can't hear you. Okay. So yeah, we'll go back and just remind people to be, for self-care and to be generous and supportive of your coworkers and colleagues. We know that you're going through a lot of changes and a lot of stress and anxiety, and so is everyone else around you. And we all deal with it a little bit differently, and we're all on different places in our path. Some of us have, engaged a little bit more frequently early on and feel more comfortable now. And maybe we forget what it felt like when we first came back on campus. And then we have a whole workforce on campus that never left and has been there fighting for us on campus and supporting us all along. And so we want to, reach out to them, be respectful for the colleague that may be hesitant to come back, and we'll get, we'll work through this, and it's going to be what, Back to the Future reimagined you, and that's a reimagined university, but also a reimagined you. So take care of yourself and be nice to each other and go Norse. Thanks everybody for participating.